It's late summer, early fall, and lots of things happen this time of year. Some things in flower, some things in fruit, and some things starting to take on their fall color. And we'll start with one that everybody knows. This is Canada Goldenrod, growing here in a little more shade than it really wants. We're in front of the lodge. But it is a very common fall blooming plant. Sometimes you'll see in sunny areas just huge patches of it. A very nice color, a great pollinator plant. It's in that category of native plants that we term a nuisance native. Sometimes it can become weedy. I know in my gardens at home, I let it flower in a few places and then I pull it in late October because otherwise it'll just take over. Many people, I was talking to somebody last week, showing them this plant, and they said, yeah, causes my hay fever, and it doesn't. The pollen in goldenrods, all goldenrods, is not wind blown, it's bee pollinated. The bees carry it around from flower to flower, so it can't cause hay fever. It's ragweed and some other things this time of year that are producing the pollen that causes hay fever. But this gets blamed for a lot of it, but it can happen. Anyway, Canada goldenrod, very common, potentially weedy, but great color and a great pollinator plant. And right next to the Canada goldenrod is a little patch of another native goldenrod. This is Zigzag Golden Rod with a very different, more open inflorescence or group of flowers, but it is a goldenrod. It is kind of our woodland goldenrod. Most goldenrods, or other goldenrods, really prefer open area, a lot of sun. This one tolerates more shade and likes high shade, like we have right here in front of the lodge. And you'll see that it has a much, much wider leaf than the Canada goldenrod. And that's because it grows in more shade, and plants that grow in shade do need a larger leaf surface. So it doesn't look like a goldenrod really at all, but it is. It gets the name Zigzag Goldenrod, and other plants do this too, but this one got the name. But it'll zig or zag at each node along the stem. So that very pronounced growth habit, that zigzag habit. So this is Zigzag Goldenrod, also a great pollinator plant, and our woodland goldenrod. We're getting some early fall color now, of course, and one of the early plants to develop fall color is on the ground right here, Virginia creeper, which is also called woodbine. And you can see it here starting to take on its, in this case, this pinky fall color. It can be out in sunnier areas, a darker red, but very nice fall color. And you can see how it can almost form a ground cover sometimes. It'll also climb up tree trunks and buildings like brick houses and brick buildings, stone. So it's a climber too. And it's also in that category along with Canada goldenrod of being a nuisance native. It can be weedy, and when it gets up on a building and starts growing on the soffit and the window frames and on the wood shingles, it can over time hold enough moisture behind it that it can cause some advanced decay on wood surfaces. So it's one you have to keep an eye on buildings. But it's a native plant, produces a little, it's in the grape family, so it produces a little fruit that birds and squirrels and other wildlife eat. But it really is one of the great plants up here for fall color, just beginning now. Virginia creeper or woodbine. It has been so dry the last 6-7 weeks. We knew this was going to happen back in May and June when it wouldn't stop raining, that we'd want some of that rain now, and we do. But this is about as dry as I've seen it in a while, a few years down here. This is in the schoolhouse meadow. Talking about another nuisance native, this is poison ivy, which is a native plant. It's a cousin to sumac. And of course, we all know it because what it can do to our skin. If it didn't do to our skin what it does, we'd probably grow it as an ornamental. It can make a nice ground cover. The fall color I thought would be really good down here, but it's been so dry. A little bit of drought stress can actually enhance fall color in some cases, but this is getting to be a serious drought now. I'm sure there's a fire hazard out there now, and a lot of plants are just drying up and not developing their fall color, like this poison ivy right here. But again, in that category of native plant that we refer to as nuisance natives, for obvious reason with poison ivy. Just on the west side of the schoolhouse, we have a patch. Here's just an outlier here, but there is more back there of the most common deciduous shrub in Door County. This is round-leaf dogwood. There are probably, for sure, 4, maybe 5 native dogwood species. In Door County, this is the most common one, and it's one of those that will often develop its fall color early. And as is true of all dogwoods, very nice fall color, usually in the darker reds, maroons, maroony purples. This is round leaf or oval leaf dogwood. Also on the west side of the schoolhouse, underneath the round leaf dogwood, and there's also some hazelnut in here, is this kind of tall ground cover of dwarf bush honeysuckle, a native plant that's just developing its nice purple fall color. Because it has the word honeysuckle in its common name, people think it's bad, and many honeysuckles are bad because they're invasive. But this is actually a native plant in the same family as the honeysuckles, but a different genus. But here it is forming a beautiful tall ground cover, which is a great way to use dwarf bush honeysuckle, and just developing its nice fall color. There are quite a few things coming into fruit, into the mature fruit right now. Also, and here's one with these beautiful cluster of reddish, dark red berries. They go from green to pink to red, and then squirrels and birds eat them. This is spikenard. It's actually a native wildflower. It looks like a shrub, but it's actually a wildflower. It'll die back to the ground. It'll die back to the ground with hard frost. I have a couple at home that are probably twice this tall. They're really happy. But it has these great plumes of creamy white flowers early in the season, and they develop into these wonderful clusters of fruit later. And it's a great plant for wildlife too, because birds and other creatures will pick at these fruit as they ripen up. So spikenard.